Today on the show, we're going to be taking a look at some ability cards in Red Dead Online and some of the huge mistakes that I see players make when creating their ability card loadouts. In the past, we've done a ton of different builds using ability cards, whether they were for max damage, max health, health recovery, melee builds, no tonics, etc., but that's not what this video is about. Within this video, we'll be showcasing some of my personally most unused cards and also ability cards that players may think provide a lot of value, but in fact can be replaced with an ability card that's much better. So if you enjoyed this video at any point, or if you just find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you want to stay up to date and in the loop with everything Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Online, consider hitting that subscribe button with your bell notifications turned on. First off, it should be noted that since all these cards are in this video, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're totally worthless or useless. It just means that players may apply a few cards to their builds for a specific reason, like health for example, and it turns out for their playstyle there's a much better choice for them. But that being said, there are ways that you can make these cards work in combination with other cards for synergy, but that's exactly what this video is all about. So starting off with damage cards, we have Necessity Breeds. Necessity Breeds allows you to deal more damage as you get closer to death. And it sounds very useful, right? You're close to dying, and so one way to survive is to deal more damage, kill the enemy faster, and start re-healing by taking a tonic. In this situation, you might as well use other health cards that allow you to re-heal by doing damage or getting kills like Strange Medicine or Cold-Blooded, since you'll be firing shots anyway. Necessity Breeds will only give you up to 20% more damage, and that's also completely dependent on how much health you're missing. Overall, I just wouldn't advise any player to remain at low levels of health just for the purposes of doing more damage. If this card is in your build, swap it out for something else, because any other damage card will do. Jumping in next, we have Hangman, which allows your lasso to deal more damage over time when you have enemies immobilized by your lasso. And when this card is maxed out at tier 3, you'll deal 30 damage per second while a player or an enemy is ensnared by a lasso. And for the amount of damage you're doing, it's honestly pretty powerful, but it is a niche card because this only applies to the lasso. So good luck using two other damage reduction or health cards to help you get close enough to the enemies to be able to lasso them to death, especially if you're doing a legendary bounty or a free roam PvP war against the posse. This card isn't necessarily terrible because it is good at doing what the card says it does, but it's just very niche, and for that reason I would say you'll get more value out of other ability cards. Next up, we have the Short Game. You deal more damage to targets very close to you and less to targets farther away. This is a card that for the longest time players were trying to measure its range of effectiveness. Me personally, I thought that the card doesn't do a good job of telling you the specifics of this card. And does far range mean out of lock-on range if you use auto aim, or is it a certain amount of meters away? Well, it turns out that the Short Game gives you a 20% damage buff when you're in the 10-foot range from an enemy, a 5% damage buff when you're in the 20-foot range, and anything past 30 to 50 feet means there will be no damage buff at all from the Short Game that's applied. And ranges past 50 feet actually mean you'll suffer a 10% damage reduction and a damage nerf from any damage you're doing to an enemy. And for that, I can't recommend this card because it will hurt you at those ranges, and 50 plus feet away is where repeaters and rifles are at their peak in terms of damage range. So unless you're fighting a strictly close quarters shotgun gunfight, perhaps like in the Last Stand Showdown mode on the Cemetery map, you're better off using a better damage card. But moving on to recovery ability cards, we have Live for the Fight. This card allows you to slowly regenerate Deadeye over time, and at the end of the day, it will take you 420 seconds to regenerate a full ring of Deadeye, with larger changes depending on if you have an empty health core or a fortified health core from Minty Big Game. The last Deadeye tested those and found that it takes 485 seconds with an empty health core, or 347 seconds with a fortified health core, which is a gold health core essentially. That's way too long for passive Deadeye. That being said, if you are going for a no tonic build like the one I made a video about last year, then I did include this card in that build, and that would be the only time and only situation where I would find this card to be useful. Next up, for recovery, we have Ride Like the Wind. On horseback, taking or dealing damage adds health and stamina back to your horse. When this card is fully maxed out, your horse restores 30% of their health and stamina based off your damage dealt, and it heals 20% health and stamina based off the damage it takes. While on paper, this sounds like a great horseback horseback card you would want to run, you can just take horse medicine or a higher grade horse medicine to fortify your horse's health core and health ring, and you can give it a stimulant to cover its stamina ring. This is another example of an ability card that could be very useful if only tonics in this game didn't exist, where you can pop one and then immediately regain all your health, stamina, Deadeye, or regain your horse's health and stamina too. Next for recovery, we have the Gift of Focus. Tonics and abilities that restore Deadeye are stronger in their effect, and from this card, you'll be getting 20% more from Deadeye restoration sources such as snake oils or chewing tobacco. If this was not strictly for Deadeye as an ability, I could probably recommend it in a build, but since health and stamina stats aren't part of this ability card, I don't think it's as useful as other Deadeye options in the game. Now moving on to our final section, which are defense cards. We have Friends for Life. On horseback, you and your horse take less damage. Throughout many tests, you'll find that your character gets about a 10% damage reduction while on horseback, but the damage your horse takes varies significantly with this card. And sometimes it's almost ineffective, and sometimes it's super useful, but no matter what, it seemed to vary even if a player was firing the same ammo type from the same weapon. The damage your horse will take varies no matter what, and so it's too unknown to see if it's like really useful or not. However, if you want to make a dedicated horseback ability card, I could see you using this card in your build. Next, we have To Fight Another Day. You take less damage from bullets when sprinting, and all in all, when this card is maxed out to tier 3, you're looking at a 10% damage reduction while sprinting. I've used this card only in a melee only build, and that will be the only time that I would find this card useful. If you use weapons at all, it's much better to invest in another ability card first before this one. Next up, we have Take the Pain Away. Upon reviving someone, both individuals take less damage for 8 seconds. Both the player that's doing the reviving and the player that's being revived will take 20% less damage for those 8 seconds when this card is at tier 3. Do you even remember the last time you revived a player and this wasn't in a PvP showdown mode? With that being said, you and them could just take tonics instead of wasting ability card slots on this ability card. And finally, we have Of Single Purpose. You take less damage from bullets when using a melee weapon or fists. And at tier 3, this card yields a 10% damage reduction when unarmed or using a melee weapon. Again, if you want a melee focused ability card build, combine this with To Fight Another Day, and that's what I did when I completed a tier 5 legendary bounty melee only on stream and also for a YouTube video. You can check out that link in the description down below. It's useful for a melee only ability card loadout, and that's about all. So with all that said, that's all we have time for today, and we're going to be wrapping things up right here. I certainly don't want to rain on anyone's parade and say if you're using these cards you have a terrible loadout build, because that's not the case and that's not really true. It just really all depends on your playstyle and how you use ability cards in Red Dead Online. But that being said, I do quite often find players making the mistake of using these cards thinking they're better when in fact there's other damage, recovery, or defense cards that could benefit them and their playstyle way more. It's not the fault of the player, it's more so the fault of the game and Rockstar for not describing these ability card effects better. They're very vague, and they require lots of testing to see how they function and operate in practice in the open world. Anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed the video today, and if you did, hopefully I earned your like on it. And of course, if you are new to my channel and you want to stay up to date with all the best Red Dead Online and Rockstar Games content, consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on a single thing we post here on the channel. We consistently talk about updates, news, information, tips, tricks, and even leaks, and we'll keep you guys updated here on the channel daily, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want to follow me over on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected with me outside of YouTube, and you're more than welcome to ask many questions on those platforms. You can follow me at HazardousHDTV, and all of my social media links can be found in the description down below. That being said, thank you all so much for watching, everyone. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you guys in the next Red Dead Online video. Adios, amigos.